Hi, Dr. Lane. So I watched Remember the Titans, and it was the alternative assignment, and I applied it to the adaptive structuration theory. And so basically, to kind of go into it, the exception structuration theory is provide the framework for understanding communication behavior, specifically how group structures, norms, and roles are part of functions of communication. The communication builds structures with simultaneous which simultaneously facilitate and constrain additional structures and ultimately additional communication. So this process refers to the duality of structure, productivity, group leadership, cohesion are variables that I applied and when I analyzed my paper for this assignment. So and I applied those variables to the group, the team, Titans, and on an individual letter with how they developed under Boone's structure and how he actually set that foundation and decision that led to better decision making processes and basically individuals giving up their own personal goals for the betterment of the team. So and of course, group structure is foundational to understanding both functional and dysfunctional groups. So in this case, Coach Boone was hired at TC High School to coach the football team, the Titans in Alexandria, Virginia, in the 1970s. And so basically, it was super racist. It was part of the integration of whites and blacks, and he was brought down without a choice, basically to Coach Yost and Coach Boone himself. He was just told he was going to do this, and basically he was brought in to win games and to integrate basically the team. And so basically, he lays the foundation. As we see in the first opening scenes, we see him laying down that foundation with his players. After trying to get Coach Yost on the board under his coaching staff as associate head coach. Anyway, so he basically comes in, everybody's goofing off, and he sets his foundational structure with what we've talked about with setting times, right? Setting authority, letting him know this is how it's going to be, this is what we're going to do, and you need to adapt or get out. And so this kind of applies with the AST because it's the structure that he has to set. And throughout, of course, this paper and, of course, throughout the movie, the structure changes and pieces are thrown out, pieces are put in, situations are adapted. And so basically, just to give an example, when he first meets these guys, he tells them to show up at 7:29 sharp, and if they show up at 7:30, they will not be playing football, and that they must do anything possible to show up in a shirt and tie. And he has no excuses, no excuses whatsoever on why you can't show up in a shirt and tie. And he literally clearly demonstrates that this is not going to be a democracy but a dictatorship. And so they kind of get the idea right off the bat how serious this guy is and what he's about. And of course, Coach Yost comes into with all of his white players. He's going to coach under him, but they basically just undermined what he's trying to lay down as a foundational structure, which then he goes into and sets with him and sets him straight on how this is going to go. And either you can put out or get out. And so Coach Yost, adapts to that, but kind of fights him through the whole movie and kind of undermines in small ways. So I think there's two sections that kind of come together at the end that apply with adaptive structuration. So cohesion, leadership, productivity are of course the things that we're looking at. And with cohesion, the players are not cohesed at all at first. But Coach Boone facilitates that by one, eliminating Gary's individual goals and all the white kids' goals by keeping all their positions and keeping all the black kids on the bench for special teams. He also takes them off the bus and throws them together, offense and defense, and then whoever they sit with is going to be their roommate. And so this is a forced cohesion and basically a facilitation of leadership by Coach Boone because you just throw these guys together. At some point, they're going to cohese. And at first, they didn't. They fought. They were screaming at each other, whatever. But over time, they started to come together. And so one of the things that stick out to me is Julius's and Gary's interaction after practice, and basically Gary kind of called him out and said, "Hey, you're a waste of talent. You could be so much better than what you're displaying." And of course, Julius comes back and says, "Well, I mean, you're not doing anything either." And attitude reflects leadership, and it kind of had an awakening for Gary that he needs to kind of step up and be a leader. And so Gary started to display that, and so did Julius. And then they kind of came together and showed the whole team that they're stepping up and that they were putting their differences aside and forming their own structure within the team by showing that they're friends and that, they're when they're banging their head against each other on the football field, it shows that they're coming together, and that, in turn allows everyone else to kind of come together, amongst teammates. Louis and Rev are a great example. Louis doesn't really care. He just sits down with these guys at lunch, at the beginning of camp, and, Rev kind of accepts him, but the other guys don't. And, Rev is able to kind of change their minds by saying, hey, he's cool, whatever, and they're having a good time. And then all of a sudden they're having a good time and they're friends. And then Rev kind of calls Louis out by doing that. And this kind of facilitates more leadership displayed by Boone by giving them empowerment by saying, okay, like, look what this guy's doing, look what they're doing. I'm going to make all of y'all ask each other questions on a personal level, and you're going to get to know each other. And so they all start to do it. You can see that their performance on the field start to improve, even though, like, we're just not there yet. There's still fighting, and there's still, differences, between black and white kids or whatever. But overall, they are improving. And of course, later on, the thing that kind of pushes them over the edge to finally kind of come together is that jog to Gettysburg, and it shows that, if we keep doing this, we are going to crash and burn. If you trust me, if you come under my, basically indirectly saying, if you come under my structure and the way we do things, we can play football like men and set our differences aside and realize that you are truly brothers and that each other is all you're going to have. And they realize that, and they continue to develop that cohesion, and there's that internal leadership and self-empowerment within the team, and that's led by Julius and Gary. And of course, throughout the movie, pieces get kind of taken out, negative and toxic people are isolated, and the group kind of carries on without him. Like Ray, for example, never opened himself up to his teammates. He never adapted to the structure and what is going on. He never bought into the strategy. He just isolated himself, and eventually Gary came back, and he's loyal to his brothers and his teammates now, and he's kicked him off the team because Ray's letting people blow right past him, and their running backs are taking brutal hits. And Julius is standing up for his teammates as well as white teammates when, his fellow black schoolmates are calling him Uncle Tom and traitor and all this stuff. These guys are sacrificing for their team despite the culture and the stigma that is placed on them from the outside world on both sides. And I think this is due to Coach Boone's foundational structure, because when culture hits like that, if the structure is strong, it's able to adapt and to overcome these challenges. And it showed that the team had self-empowerment by having a group players only meeting where the leaders, Jerry and Julius, didn't even have to say anything. It was all Blue, it was Louie and Rev, and all of a sudden everybody's kind of back on board and back on the train, and they have a mission, they have a goal that they want to achieve. And so that goes into the decision-making process of AST to produce an ultimate output. And of course, they continue to adapt that theory, that structure, to where they go through a undefeated season, and players are sacrificing for each other. Petey was toxic at first, and Allen took his position, but in the championship game, Allen's like, hey, you can have it back. I suck. Petey goes back in there. They win the championship, etc. Yost puts his pride aside. He finally stands up for Boone, talking about, pressing charges against, or telling the police about the brick being thrown through the window because the refs were calling an unfair game. So everybody sacrificed themselves for the betterment of the team, and that plays directly into the structure that Boone created, and it plays into leadership, self-empowerment, and ultimate high productivity. And so that is just basically what my paper was about, and what happened throughout the book or happened throughout the movie. And appreciate you listening to me, and have a great day.